different perspectives.
I don't think the proposal is reasonable, Carol.
Okay, that's what's been proposed from this group.
Is there a sort of a, I don't know, show of hands or head nods or whatever? Is there an interest in proposing something along these lines of a lower density in the big block with a trade-out bonus to the Placid Lake area that we should write up, because we've heard Plum Creek will consider any written proposal to them. So we don't have the ability here to get a yay or nay. We need to submit a written proposal to go back, and then at a future meeting, I guess, get a response back or whether that's
Well, how can they respond if we don't have any?
Sounds like we need to be more
but then, so we have to put some, yeah, so what I'm saying, they want a written proposal.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna move anything forward, to me, we have to come up with something that we're gonna put down in writing to submit to them, so that we can continue those discussions. Otherwise, we just come back here and we're at the exact same place at the start of the next meeting, saying, what are we gonna write up to send to Plum Creek for them to then respond to, so.
So John, you're wanting something in writing to Plum Creek before the council meeting, before the other, we've mentioned, talk to the other council members, or do it anymore?
That's a question as well for the group, as to whether this should go as something to the full council, or whether we just submit this, whatever it is, to Plum Creek and have another meeting scheduled in August, come back here again. Kat loves Sealy Lake, so she'll.
Well, I think Kat has already told us that it's not going to have as much weight if it comes from the three of us.
No, I'm sorry if I gave you that impression. That's not what I intended at all. But what I don't want to do is react to a proposal that the community is not also reacting to. So I would expect that if you make a proposal, that it go to the whole community, and that we come back whenever it is you'd like reactions, and the whole community respond to the proposal.
She's not suggesting you have to get the community's perspective before you give it to Plum Creek, just that it be given to everybody at the same time for everybody to
All right,
comment.
now that's where I was confused. Because that would be very difficult to do. And I can understand both sides of it. You would like to know for sure that people are behind it before you present it. But we don't even know what we can present.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, this process is one where we had a community-approved plan. And we are now back to saying, where do we go
Well,
with that?
and pretty much what the community has said to us is what I think that we have said tonight in different ways. Protect this. There's only so much development that we will accept here. How do we get to that? Is that, are we saying the same thing?
And we need more receiving areas.
Like going out of the,
Well,
The valley, which is-
that's not our function.
right,
That's not our function.
but that would be maybe the message.
That would be
to
county.
Is there any part of the far southern end of the big block that could be considered for a small cluster? Or is the big block pretty much sacrosanct?
The big block, probably the further west you get, more sensitive it is. And that's reflected in our original April.
What I was leading to the thought of, can you take like the southeast corner of it and say, okay, you guys, you want 1 to 160 up in here? Fine, but they're all going to be squeezed into this little 20-acre parcel down in here in a little cluster.
Or 260.
And that's,
Don't make it too hard.
and that's where we work,
Yeah.
that's where the questions come in, is what do we want? Right now in the plan, we have a cluster bonus in place, and we've had discussions of, gee, the one that was in the 8th plan was a 50% bonus if you keep 85% of your area open. We've talked about making that a 50% bonus at 75. So one of the questions, do you keep that cluster bonus, which has good features for development in a lot of areas that we like the idea of in there? Then you look at the numbers. If you go with the current proposal of 160 acres with a line of 40s there, and you apply a cluster bonus for it,
I think you actually precluded use of the cluster bonus in the rural protection zones.
no. We approved them, I believe, in our RP1 and certainly the RP1, or the RP3 and 4s, I believe.
In any event, in the area that we proposed to be 1 to 160, it was not permitted
Okay,
use of it.
and so the full big, well, let me go back. Do you remember that December plan, what the big block looked like?
Most of it was, almost all of it was 1 to 160.
Yeah.
And
Except for
I
the
have
line
to
in the
ask-
40s or not?
Pardon?
I have to ask, is that our function, or is that the function of zoning for each individual subdivision
Pardon?
cluster? And what those numbers should be?
Yeah, and it only works down to a certain point too, unless you can add on additional sewer capabilities,
Right.
which you certainly do, and make it work or whatever density you want. So if it was all 1 to 160, then we're talking potentially 100 units from the big block.
Kind of afraid to muddy the water, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm kind of afraid to muddy the water since you're getting to somewhere, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Okay, so if we're looking at conservation value, part of the deal is fragmentation. How do we block this up? What kind of tools can we use to block this up?
Nothing in the short term.
And then, if it's about protecting, I mean, are we saying, we're gonna have some development someplace up here, and if we are, what is the real vision of town? I mean, building more town here or building more town here isn't making a heck of a lot of sense.
Something's wondering about these four, but I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of wetlands here, that's
Yeah.
gonna be tough, but, and there's wetlands here even if you trade it out, but, I mean, I almost think it's gonna take some, drawing your woolly line, I mean, all these maps are great, and I know you can't make it too busy, but sometimes there's just not quite enough information on the map for us to really think about this clearly. You can hold two maps and go like this, but anyway, we haven't really talked about blocking this up and how there might be trading to do that, because that's, if you're trying to make a big linkage zone along this mountain range, maybe there's something, or maybe there's some other things we can do that make it rational, I don't know.
Well, we're open to.
I know, I can't think anymore about it tonight, but I'm trying to get.
I agree, I think we're all to the point we can't think anymore about it.
But that's the bottom line, we
How
have
do
to
we
take
check
the
this map
time,
out?
take the time to do it the right way.
How do we check
These
these
guys,
out?
you guys aren't in a real rush, right? I mean, because you just got 500 million that ought to stop this settled for a while, right?
Are you usually at the water?
Community council should follow its own process. We've never tried to dictate the timing on this.
You can check them out from John.
Maybe not what you're thinking.
It just seems like, most of these meetings are looking for ways to squeeze a little more blood out of Plum Creek. I can't believe I'm taking Plum Creek side.
Charlie must be tired.
Yeah. places where maybe the, you can shave it, like that right-hand side, part of that right-hand side off the big block, that is the least critical and also closest to the existing infrastructure and it's closest to the rules. And maybe I'm not going to be totally for Plum Creek, but I'm thinking if you can let them take the development rights on the whole, even at 1 to 160, that are in the big block, and let them utilize them within a certain sacrificial section of the big block, then you save having to transfer them down with big multipliers down into the Placid Creek area, which is, although it may not have the large carnivores and all the other critical animals, it does have a pretty good,
It does, Jerry.
I know, I'm saying, it may not meet the endangered species critical wildlife patterns there, but it certainly is a very cohesive and strong ecology going on down there. Hate to see it sacrificed. And a strong community too.
And the legacy, the news of the legacy is something still that we have to sift through and see how that settles even.
Where else besides Placid this can go within the whole county?
And that is
Not
our
just
function.
Sealy Lake.
Right.
But if we take that
We can't
forward,
write that into our plan.
We could do that, we could just say, well, we've given up after 2.25 years and coming up with a plan. The commissioners have indicated they want us to produce some kind of plan. And to take that and ask them to come up with something that works on a countywide basis, they're starting from zero out in most of these areas, and I don't know how long of a process you're looking at there, so.
But if you use Plum Creek's idea of incorporating wording for the ability to do TDRs later,
The meeting in August?
just put a plan together now,
If we have something to talk about, sure. I just don't want to come back and not have a proposal to talk about. I mean, we worked really hard to create 3 proposals, and I feel like we got about, 20 minutes of not really very detailed comments from the council about that, and almost no comments from the community about that, and
Well, it would have been nice if you would have taken a little more time to actually explain the plans. I remember at the last meeting, you guys rushed through it so fast that a lot of people didn't even
They've been on the web for a month for
understand.
detailed considerations, maps.
Yeah, I think, it seems to be, there's been a fairly clear statement here that it looks like probably going with one of your proposals with modifications is the direction we'll be going from. So it's not like they were all trash, but proposal 2 seems to have the most traction. But it has some shortfalls that will be looked at and alternatives to those shortfalls proposed.
Some kind of combination of 2 and 3. Because about your comment.
last month there was no TDRs, we're never going to take, we'll include the concept, but we don't want any TDRs, and this month we're sort of back to TDRs, and all that discussion is good, I just,
I think that you have to understand, too, Kat, that we are part of a whole, a community, and it is a process, and it is sometimes a slow, snail's pace process, but I still think the process is moving forward. I hope that you feel that after tonight. I still feel like the process is moving forward.
I feel like we've given more pints of blood than we actually have to give. And at some point, there has to be a discussion, how much can you extract? Plum Creek was willing to say 800 units in that area. The proposal that's on the table for 2, drop that in half. And now you're saying, well, we might like that if you drop it again by a factor of 10. And,
just not
when do you just get to say, okay, it's pretty darn reasonable?
I thought you didn't have any plans for 800 units.
we do.
There's not, but there's a relative value to doing examination of all of this. you can't say that giving up 80,000 acres for 200 rights is reasonable.
You know, maybe a meeting without you guys here might be okay. To be, no, seriously, I mean, you know, so that, you know, that wouldn't be the end of the world necessarily.
Exclude the people who...
No, I mean, you could come if you wanted to, but if you chose not to show up and there was a free-ranging discussion or something and people talked about things, that might be a possibility. It's just something to think about.
The legacy meeting is July 30th, we're going to get more information then. A lot of us are not quite clear what lands.
Sure.
Gives us time to really
That
see.
really is,
what
it's a big shift, you might need to know, it's a big shift.
Yeah, I didn't
Just
hear much of a reaction that resonated with the community today, though, based upon the proposals that came
We're
back.
going to talk about it on the 30th, so that's right.
No, really about the proposals that came back. Yeah, right. What have you done for me lately?
Proposal 2 with modifications as a submission, something that you guys aren't going to freak out about? Comments?
Depends.
Hopefully.
I guess it depends on what the changes are, Jerry, you know, and I don't have a lot of independent decision-making here. I mean, I need to go back to my bosses and submit a proposal to them, and so that's why it's impossible for me to react without having the proposal to take back to them.
Give them that piece of paper, John.
Well, I mean, I need to have a reasonable amount of detail on that. We submitted a pretty detailed proposal. We just asked for that same courtesy back.
Sure, no, I'm not opposing that.
I think we should just have the next meeting, have this July 30 meeting. We're going to learn some on the legacy, have the community council meeting, have this meeting, another time to sit down and draft that. Put it out on the website so that everybody can look at it for the next 2 or 3 weeks, month, whatever it is. And come back and draft a proposal. When we did the downtown area, we met over and over and over and over. And everybody around the tables were pulled together. We're looking at the maps, we're looking at this piece and that piece. It took a long time to get that done, but it came away with a consensus, and then the council changed it. So, you know, to get this process through takes some effort.
Yeah, we know that.
Just in case you haven't noticed.
Just in case we hadn't
You
noticed.
got it.
Yeah, just in case.
Public hearing.
I'm sorry?
Maybe a public hearing that night. I mean, you've taken input from the community for many years, but you're now at a kind of a new juncture a little bit. Things have changed a little, so maybe one big evening public hearing to just flesh out everything.
I think that's kind of called a community council meeting.
Yeah, you're there.
The question is, what do we bring forward to, we will report out on this at the community council meeting. I'm not quite sure what we're reporting out. I did hear that we are taking the Plum Creek Proposal 2 and modifying it in some way and getting back a written proposal to them based on that modification. That modification focusing something around changes to the big block, potentially, in the Placid Lake area. Beyond that, I'm hearing like the option 2 of Plum Creek's not hearing a lot of concerns, other than trying to balance the big block and the Placid Lake kind of concerns.
And with the addition to, and again, the frustration is because your hands are tied because you're only the community council, but to back out, you know, get your wide angle on there and look at the other areas. I mean, even outside the county, that whole idea of going to over here was something that somebody's going to look into. I don't know.
But, you know, Powell County's now off the block because the lands over there that we were looking at are part of the Montana Legacy
Oh,
project.
are they? Oh, I didn't know that.
So that one is, yeah, there's no sense in talking with Powell County. You have no Plum
Yeah.
Creek lands left in,
On this
maybe
end.
in Powell County after the 88,000 up in the Blackfoot. So it's now, I'm sure the commission is not, they're aware of and sensitive to trying to address these issues at a countywide basis. The timing on that, though, is I think we're looking at years out to get that, and they are gonna put some kind of zoning in place, or attempt to, and they want our input in how to do it this valley, and they want it in a reasonable future here. We're two years and 3 months or more into it, and frankly, they've been a lot more patient than I thought they were gonna be, and that they've several times said they were gonna be.
Because the economy has sort of taken some of the.
That has helped. That has helped a lot. The high development pressure that was going on is slackened some, but, you know, they,
John, is there a way that you could have the proposals of Plum Creek's, at least 2 and 3, published in the Pathfinder and with a request, you don't do that?
Well, there-
Request that
yeah.
people make some suggestions.
it's up to the Pathfinder. I don't think we would pay the Pathfinder to publish them. They are out on the county website. And if the Pathfinder chose to publish them, that would be fine.
So that might
However,
get more seated people talking about it if they were each holding a paper.
That's a good
and
point. And I think when we report out at the August 4th council meeting, that we need to go into enough detail on what were the proposals, what were some of the concerns raised, where did we get to in this process. I don't think we're anywhere near close enough to bring something specific forward on the 4th. I think we're just suggesting on the 4th and making sure the full council is then supportive of us trying to come up with a written proposal along the lines of what we're talking about. And in talking about that and refining that at another meeting that we'll schedule for sometime in August.
Announce that at the community.
Announce it as a community council and then put it in the Pathfinder and put it on the community website that should be up and running by then.
Where is the legacy meeting on the 30th then? At
Community hall.
When that's
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock on the 30th.
And so, did you guys decide when the next meeting will be with you guys at
Here.
Plum Creek?
We haven't,
We haven't decided.
they pretty well said if we're gonna have a proposal for it on their notice.
So that's up in the air still at the date.
We will set that at the August
After
4th
the-
community council meeting.
Because we
Because
are
I
planning on getting
would
something.
rather do it when at least we have potentially more folks there that might have some input on that.
Right, so we should be able to come up with something to
Yeah,
take
they'll
forward.
probably have somebody there, Plum Creek will have
Not
a
necessarily.
council meeting.
I don't
Don't
think
they usually have somebody show
they didn't
up?
Not
last.
like
Only if
Only if there's something.
In the mix. Okay, so we're not scheduling another meeting for this group right now. Do that on the
We-
4th?
I think that'd be on the spot.
Yeah, we can suggest one now that we would then approve or not, or change on the 4th if you've
No,
got
let's
it.
just wait, because we have to come up with something concrete first. Just send it concrete before we can even say, okay, we'll get this to Plum Creek on X date, and give them 2 weeks to respond or whatever, so.
You guys, thank you so much for all your effort on this.
We get paid big bucks.
I know, I was gonna say something when, well, we gave you that 18-page thing.
I came real close to saying,
Does that
hey,
mean we're adjourned?
excuse me, but you're getting paid for these hours.
bargaining group per se. They're what we call meet and confer. These arrangements are made generally with the mutual consent of both parties. And so the question is, there are districts, of course, lots of districts that have a scale or a matrix like we have with our teachers. They're negotiated. In our case, our principals have agreed and some time ago that if they occupied the same position, regardless of the number, how big their school is, that they would be paid the same amount of money. And it's just a matter of how they've agreed to do it. They could come to Dr. Clark tomorrow, for example, and say, we want to change that and see if he and the board would agree to that. But it's not something set from on high. It's a mutually arrived upon arrangement. Some years ago, we had a revamping of all of these salaries. And the question then became, what is the salary of an elementary compared to the salary of a middle school compared to a high school and so forth? And what they negotiated at that point in time was that the high school salary would be the benchmark. 100%. And then what happened is that they negotiated a percentage, and I don't have that percentage in front of me. I'd go down through it with you, but that an elementary should be worth X percent of a high school. And all of the salaries were calculated on the basis of a percentage of the high school budget. Directors, for example, were 102% of a high school budget, whereas elementaries went been 82% of a high school salary. So that's how they negotiated that.
I would also add, and you can help me, Larry and Jim, with memory, when the matrix was established, Kelly, one of the reasons that, for instance, all the elementary principals have the same rate of pay was because there were great differences among those years ago. And some of our newer principals at that time were women, and some of our long-term principals were men. And it was a gender equity issue, and one way to get around that was to have all the principals at the same grade level have the same rate of pay, and I understand it was their choice. Jim?
I was going to bring that up. Also, we invested quite a bit of treasure at one time to equalize all of that. It was purposely done by the board to bring all the salaries into line. So it took several years, I think, to do that, but it was accomplished, and it's a good thing that we now. Everybody pretty much knows where they're at. If they're a principal and they're an assistant principal, they know everybody who has the same title has the same pay rate.
Any more questions before we go to discussion? Nancy?
I also think this is curious, the number of people that are on a 260-day-a-year contract and who's on 210. Can you explain that to me?
Well, 260